Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today's video is about Angular routing. If you are working on any Angular project, you must know about Angular routing. Like what is routing, why do we need routing, and how to implement routing in Angular project. Also, if you have watching my video for the first time and if you like my content, then please help me by subscribing to my channel. So let's start with Angular component and routing with the help of this diagram. So app component is a root component of any Angular application, and we can create many more components under app component by using CLI command like ng generate component name. And the routing means navigation between pages. Angular router enables navigation from one view to other view. So as mentioned in this diagram, 4 components are routed and we can navigate through the localhost 4200/path. In this example, we have one component, app component, and we have a 4 component like home, about, contact, and playlist. And if you want to navigate from home component to other component, then we need to use routing in our application. So we will see in practical how we can navigate from one component to other component by click on home element or by adding the path after this localhost 4200 URL. So we will understand this routing concept with practical example, and then we will switch to interview questions on routing so that we can understand questions easily. So for practical, I need to go inside Visual Studio Code. What is routing? Routing is used to handle the navigations. It means we can navigate from one view to another view. So to understand this routing with practical, I have created one project, and inside that I have added few components to save our time. But if you want routing in our application, Angular provides us array while we creating the Angular application. So to show that, I will create one new project for you to understand how to add routing while creating the project. So with the help of command ng new Angular routing, I'll create a project. So Angular will ask you one question. Would you like to add Angular routing? So in this stage, you have to say yes if you want routing in your application. If you say no or if you say n, then you will not get approuting.module.ts file. I will show you after this project creation. So I want routing in my application, so I'll go with S. The second question, we need to choose the CSS. I'll go with SCSS, and once enter, it will take few seconds and project will get created for us. I'll minimize this because I don't need this project. I just created this to show you how to create routing application. So I will work on this project because I have created all the components to save our time, and I have added data inside component as well. So I wanted to show you that once you say S for routing while creating the Angular application, you will get approuting.module.ts file, and inside that you'll get one routes array. So inside that array, we can add our routes, and with the help of that route, we can navigate from one view to another view. And one more thing, how we can understand from which component our routing will get started. We can see that inside index.html file, you can see line number 6, base href equals to /. It means your routing will start from the root component of your application, and root component of our application is app component. So navigation will start from app component. So I have added some code inside app.component.html, that is the navbar. I have used bootstrap. For this, I'll show you. See, I have added one navbar, and inside that we have a home, about, contact, and playlist component. So once we click on a home component will get display. Once you click on about component will get display. Similarly, contact and playlist. And if you slash and about and hit enter, you should redirect to the about page. Similarly for home, contact, and playlist. So that we will do now. So if you want to display the component inside our main page, then what we used to do, we used to add the selector of that component inside app.component.html. html. So first I'll show you how our application looks like. For that, I'll add the selector of all component inside this div. App home, same for this ending tag. Okay, now you can see this is home page, this is about page, and this is contact us page, and last is a playlist. So we have 4 components in our app component. So what we want to implement, as of now, we want to implement once we type home, then our URL will redirect to that home component. Once we type about, this URL will redirect us to the about component. So, but what we need for that, we need to create the routes for each and every component. So for that, we need to use this approuting.module.ts file, and we have to add component inside this routes array. So we will create an object of each component with the pair of path and component. So path, we have to write a path in quotes. So for home, I'll write home, and component, I need to render the component is home component once I click home on the URL. So this is for home. Similarly, we can write for about, contact, and playlist. And the respective component we need to add. About component, contact component, and last is playlist component. So save the changes, and in app.component.html, I gave slash to this href. Instead of slash, we need to pass the path, same path, to this home href. So I'll give home. Save the changes and go to the browser. I'll do this for about because home is already there, so you'll not see the changes. Okay, so hit enter. About, still it is not redirect. Why? Because once we add the component inside routes array, we need to call one attribute instead of this component that is called as router outlet. So I'm going to comment this and I'll call the router outlet. This router outlet works like a placeholder of this routing component. So instead of this routing component, we have to write router outlet. Then only our routing will work. So now save the changes and go to the browser. So I'll hit localhost 400, and once I add slash and home, hit enter, your home component will get displayed. No other components because I had commented it from app.component.html. So similarly, about, enter, we will see the about component. Okay, so I'll do this for contact and playlist. Save the changes and we'll see for contact. It's working. And last is playlist. This is also working. And we can navigate from one component to another component by using this nav bar element. Like this is home component. So now we are in home component. Once we click on about component, it will redirect to about. Similarly for contact and playlist. But if you notice, once I navigate from one component to another component, the page will get refresh. Like now I am moving from playlist to about. You can see our whole page is getting refreshed. Like for component, it is refreshed. Why? Because we are setting this path to href. And to resolve this issue, we have one more directive in Angular that is called as routerLink. So we have to assign this path to routerLink directive. It gives router control over those elements. We can define this router tag with quotes, or you can define this with property binding. But for that, we need to add about inside single quote. One more thing, we can pass this property, this router link with property binding. And we can use like this. square bracket and one single quote, we can use routerLink with slash. So these are the 4 ways we can use routerLink in our application. Now save the changes and go to the browser. I'll load this application with localhost 4200. Now I click on a home component. You can see home component is loaded without page refresh. Now I am moving from home component to about component. You can see here page is refreshing or not. See, page is not refreshing. Component, no refresh. And for playlist, page is not refreshing. So we'll see with URL / home, enter, page is not refreshing. About, page is not refreshing. Contact, same. Playlist also working fine. So this is the second stage of routing. So now we can learn about empty path. Why we need empty path inside our route? Why? Because once we load our application with localhost 4200 and hit enter, our web page is showing empty. So if we are not giving any path through URL or before we click on any element on this nav bar, we want one component default. So for that we need to set an empty path inside approuting.module.ts. And that empty path I'll add here, like path empty, and the component should be home component, because once we load the application with localhost 4200, the home component will get load by default. Save the changes and go to the browser. So you can see we didn't give any route inside URL, or we didn't click on any element from the nav. So once I click on about, it will go to about, and once I click on home, I'll come back to home. So that is why we need to set an empty path inside our routes array. So we can set empty path in 2 ways. This is the first way, and the second way I want to show you. We need to give path with empty quotes, and next we have to set redirect to which path where you would redirect your application first time. So I will give home, and path match is full. Save the changes and go to the browser. So once I hit enter, it will take home path by default, and now you can redirect from any component from home component. So the next is, if we enter wrong route, like instead of home we enter or and hit enter, then it will throw error. You can see inside console this will crash your application. So this wrong URL will crash your application. So to handle this, we need wildcard route in our routes array. A wildcard route has a path considering of 2 asterisks to match every wrong path URL. So we can assign this with object, and here the path value is 2 asterisk. This 2 asterisk indicates wildcard route, and the component for that I have created page not found. So instead of crashing your application, you can send one message to the user, that is 404 message. I have added here 404 error, page not found. So you can mention here any user friendly message so that user can understand easily. For this wildcard route, I'll pass the component page not found. Save the changes and go to the browser. So now here home component, about component, contact component, and if I write contract instead of contact and hit enter, I'll get message 404 page not found. And if I go inside inspect, you can see inside console you will not get any error. It means your application is not crashing. One more thing we need to remember about wildcard route. The position of wildcard route should be always at end. I will show you. If we place this here, and I comment this, save the changes, and here first of all we will see if we hit localhost 4200, then by default what it will take? It will take home. But now it will redirect to 404 because in whichever order we have added routing component in this routes array, it will execute in same order. It will follow the same order. That is why first it will check first path, and that is wildcard route. So before this wildcard route, if we have any routing component, then it will check with that, and if not, then it will execute page not found component, and it will stop checking the another routing component, because Angular will consider this is the last route we have added inside routes array. That is why we have to add this wildcard route at end. If you see here, about is not working, about is also throwing 404, contact is also throwing 404, home is also throwing 404, and playlist also throwing, because it is not checking any routes. Once he execute wildcard route, it will not execute the route which we have added after wildcard route. So that is why we need to add this route at end. Save the changes and go to the browser. Now playlist is working. Delete, enter, home is working. So this is all about wildcard route. So now the last is, I wanted to show you, once you navigate from one component to another component, I want this home element or any element from this navbar. If I click on a home element, the home should look like different, so that user can understand he is inside home component. Similarly for contact, if we click on a contact and leave the cursor from contact, then user should understand he is inside contact. So for that, Angular have one more directive which is called as routerLinkActive. So with the help of that, we can identify easily which router link is active. So for that, we will add routerLinkActive directive and assign the class is active. Save the changes and go to the browser. Now I click on a home component and I leave the cursor from home element. Now the home element color is in blue. So similarly, I want to do this for about and contact. Okay. So I'll quickly copy this and paste it all three routes. Now you can see we were in contact component. So that is why contact is in blue color. So if we click on about and leave the cursor, about color is blue. Similarly for playlist also. With the help of this routerLinkActive directive, user can understand in which component he is. So that is it about basic routing. So now we will see interview questions on routing. What is Angular router, or what is the purpose of Angular router? As users perform application tasks, they need to move between the different views that you have defined. So to handle the navigation from one view to the next view, we use Angular router. It enables developers to bind single page application with multiple views and allow navigation between these views. Next question is, what is base href tag? The href attribute is used to specify the base URL for all relative URLs on the page. During navigation, the base href tag is used by the Angular router as a base path to the component template and modules files. If the app folder is the application root, then you can set the href value as base href equals to /. It has to have it in your application, or it's compulsory to add this in the index.html file, otherwise routing will not work. We have already seen index.html file with base href tag, and which automatically comes once we create Angular application, because app folder is a root folder of any Angular application, or app component is a root component of any Angular application. So the next question is, what is router outlet? Router outlet is a directive where we can display our routing component, and it acts as a placeholder of routing component. Next question is, what is default route or empty route? To define default route in Angular, we can use an empty path as the root path in the routes array configuration. When the empty path is accessed, Angular will render the component associated with that route. As we discussed in the practical, we can define default route in two ways. The first is, we can specify the empty path and component, and we can add the component where we want to redirect our application. And the second way is we need to mention the redirect to with path name, and the value of path match is full. What is the purpose of wildcard route? The purpose of wildcard route in Angular is to handle URLs that are not defined in the application. When the router encounters a URL that doesn't match any defined routes, it can redirect or display a specific component to handle the situation. For example, wildcard route can be used to navigate to a 404 page for any invalid route. Like I have added page not found component with 404 error message to define wildcard route. Wildcard route is use path as a to asterisk to match every route. The syntax of wildcard route is like this: path to asterisk and the component is page not found component. What is single page application in Angular? Angular framework is used for the development of single page application. Single page application is an application that doesn't need to reload the page during its use. In the single page application, the whole data is sent to the client from the server at the beginning. As the client clicks certain parts on the web page, only the required part of the information is fetched from the server and the page is rewrite dynamically. Hope you remember while doing practical example, the page was getting refreshed with href attribute, but once we used routerLink directive instead of href attribute, we were moving from one component to other component without page getting refreshed or without page load. So advantage of single page application is high performance and loading pages faster. And the examples of single page application is Facebook, Gmail, Google, Twitter, GitHub, etc. So the next is, what is the difference between href and routerLink? Href is a HTML attribute. With this attribute, the whole page will get refreshed. Because of that, we can't see the previous changes if we come back to the same page. And the syntax of href tag is like this. Inside anchor, we can define href attribute. And the routerLink is a directive, and we can use this directive if we want to navigate to the next page without performing any task. It means use this directive to just redirect to new page. And the syntax of routerLink is, instead of href, we need to use routerLink. That's it. And if we want to perform any task before routing to the next page, then we have to use router.navigate and router.navigate by URL. These are the methods which we are going to see in upcoming videos. And the last question is, what is routerLinkActive? The routerLinkActive directive is used to track whether the linked route of an element is currently active and allows you to specify one or more CSS classes to add the element when the linked route is active. It provides a straightforward way to style navigation links based on the current route. So hope you understand the routing concept in Angular. So if you learn anything from this video, then please do like, share and subscribe my channel. Thank you. Bye-bye.